Video games are no longer bound by the constraints of technology like they once were. In this day and age, developers are able to create anything that their imaginations can muster. From the typical action-packed first-person shooter, to RPGs, to horror, to the absolute downright strange or weird. Sadly, this is a freedom that a lot of developers do not use, and unique titles are something of a rarity. When developers do release a game of pure uniqueness, it is truly a magical experience. Knock Knock is a psychological horror adventure game developed and published by Icepick Lodge. It released October 4th, 2013 on both GOG.com and Steam. It later released on PS4 on September 9th, 2015 and PS Vita February 18th, 2016. Icepick Lodge is a small Russian developer previously known for their titles Pathologic, Divide, Cargo, The Quest for Gravity and the upcoming Pathologic remake, scheduled for release later this year. Both Pathologic and Cargo, The Quest for Gravity won the Most Non-Standard Game Award at the Russian Game Developers Conference in 2005 and 2007 respectively. Icepick Lodge are renowned for their unique titles that cannot be compared to any other. Each title they release is very different from the last, and Knock Knock is certainly no different. Knock Knock revolves around the Lodger, a worldologist. He is the latest lodger at the house where his father and his grandfather bring the previous lodgers. Strange occurrences have begun to happen within the house. Noises can be heard, strange beings are seen, and things are ever changing. What is happening within the cabin? What is happening in the woods that surround it? Is what the lodger is experiencing even real? Is it all in his insomniac mind? He must find the answer to these questions and solve the mystery behind them before his insanity consumes him. While Knock Knock does indeed have a story, it is one that is well hidden within the game's mechanics. For example, answers to the story can only be found throughout the night while exploring the cabin and avoiding the guests. The story to the game is very cryptic and is given in a more riddle form than out straight. It is a tale that requires thought but is also open to players' own interpretation as well. There are multiple endings depending on how you progress throughout the game. It depends on how much you have figured out and discovered, and just how much of reality you have noticed from fiction. I can't say that I truly understand what the story to Knock Knock is about, as getting the best ending has so far eluded me. Yes, I could simply just look it up, but finding the best ending is something I want to experience through my own determination and effort. I have my theories as to what might actually be the cause of everything that the lodger is experiencing, but I'm not going to talk about them here. I feel that Knock Knock is a game to experience for the first time without hearing others' theories. Doing so, I feel, would affect your experience with the game and the point of it. From what I have experienced of the story, this is what you would come to expect from Icepick Lodge. Strange, mysterious, and anything but the normal. It is fascinating and constantly changing. Throughout my playthrough of the game, my theories were constantly changing as I progressed further. It constantly throws new possible perspectives on everything all the time. It is a story of absolute mystery, and one that is challenging to solve. As if talking about the story wasn't hard enough, this is going to be a tough game to explain its mechanics and how everything works, or at least to a point in some way that it makes sense, while not spoiling anything. Okay, the levels of the game are split into two separate forms, day and night, each which is played differently. During the day, you can explore the house without the dangers of the guests attempting to find you, the guests being the strange monstrous beings. You're completely free to move around at your own pace. To progress, you will need to activate the clock that is shown to you at the start of the level. Only then will you be able to exit the house and explore the woods. Once in the woods, your objective is to explore and return to the house. I know for certain that there is something to be found each time you enter the woods. To find it, you must listen for a change within the sounds from the animals. When you return to the house, the next stage will begin, where it will be night time. The night levels are a completely different ball game to that of daytime. Not only do you have to survive the night, you also have to explore the rooms looking for the truth behind the occurrences in the cabin and woods. To survive the night, you must avoid the guests. The guests enter the house from holes in the walls. Another way of describing them would be portals. Before a hole opens in a wall, the camera will focus on the room it is going to appear in. You will have a certain amount of time to get to that room and turn on the lights, and only then will the hole close. If you don't get to close it, the guests will begin to enter the house. Once a guest is in the house, you cannot defeat them, you can only hide from them. It turns into a game. of hide and seek. In order to hide, however, you must first discover a location to hide in. In most rooms, when you light them up, the lodger will close his eyes. When he does this, you can remain in the room until he opens them again. When he opens his eyes, it will reveal more of the room, and most importantly, sometimes a place to hide. This mechanic is also used to reveal hidden clocks that will allow you to speed up time, making the duration of the night shorter. If one of the guests catch you, it will send time backwards, making the night last ever longer. If they catch you enough, or if it isn't close enough to reaching morning when they catch you, they can force you to restart the level all over again. When it comes to hiding from them, they will always have a chance of finding you. If you go into hiding while they're in the same room or just entering it, they will immediately catch you. Surviving during the night is just one part of it, however. Basically, you will need to use the night in order to piece together the entire puzzle, as it is only then that you can find what is referred to as the key to the puzzle. If you rush through the nights, or as I did begin with standing around in areas I felt safe in while waiting for daytime, the chances are you will get the bad ending, as you will miss vital details. Knock Knock is a game that I'm still very much experimenting with when it comes to its mechanics and fully understanding exactly how the game works. The thing is, the game never actually tells you how they work, but rather hint in a cryptic way. The gameplay to Knock Knock is rather odd. It is actually hard to classify it as any particular form of game. In the previous episode I described it as a point-and-click adventure, which is, in retrospect, incorrect. A more accurate title would be a psychological horror adventure game. I admit its gameplay is somewhat repetitive, resulting in a game that should not be played in one single sitting. Attempting to do so can result in potential boredom or even frustration. While that may be the case, the night levels are quite intense as you attempt to explore the house while stopping the guests from entering to the best of your abilities. Playing it in small doses, and it becomes a much more enjoyable game. If you don't like games that don't hold your hand and hand you the information on how its mechanics work, Knock Knock is certainly not going to be for you. If you don't mind being thrown into the deep end, where you have to experiment and figure things out for yourself, then you may just enjoy its gameplay. While the story and gameplay to Knock Knock may be somewhat a mystery, there is no mistake in its beautiful visuals and dark atmosphere. The artwork to the game makes it look and act like a very dark cartoon, an interesting choice to say the least. For the gameplay of the game, however, I can't see a more realistic art style working. The only way I can describe the game visually, and through its setting as well, The Nightmare Before Christmas meets Evil Dead. It isn't a very good comparison, but the game is twisted enough to be something of Tim Burton's mind. God, this game is a reviewer's worst nightmare. The visuals may be cartoony, but that doesn't stop them from being creepy. Everything about the house has a creepy feel to it. Every room, every piece of equipment and decor, and the forest, that is just child's nightmare fuel. As for the atmosphere, it is as creepy as the visuals. Everything is always dark and poorly lit, even during the day. The woods that surround the house have an eerie feel to them, particularly due to their dying appearance. There is always a sense of someone watching you, even during the day, hiding within the darkness of the cabin's rooms and in the trees within the forest. There is something watching. As the game progresses, you can't help but feel that what is watching you is getting ever closer. It is a dark world, one full of mystery, horror, and downright insanity. It is unique, and there isn't quite anything else like it, and that alone is enough to make you feel uncomfortable. The lack of familiarity creates unease with the player. Knock Knock is pretty much Ice Pick Launch as a developer in a nutshell. This is the kind of games that they create. They create games that are unique and have a dark, foreboding atmosphere. Even with the likes of Pathologic, a game that is based in a town with human beings is somehow turned into a place completely alien to that of what we know. They have a particular talent at making the player fear the unknown, and that is what Knock Knock is about. Is it a game that players will understand? No. Is it a game that can be compared to anything else accurately? No. Is it a game that will scare you? No. Ice Pick Launch have a unique way of bringing horror into their games. They don't give you jump scares, but rather make you feel unease and discomfort, where you feel and know something is coming, and you know you can't stop it. Do I fully understand what Knock Knock is about? No, I don't. But at the same time, I don't have to. I don't personally think it is a game that you're supposed to fully understand, but rather experience. A game that is so different and unique that just playing it results in an experience like no other. and that is rewarding on its own. I love Knock Knock. It's original, creepy and completely unique, and that alone is enough to win me over. In an industry that is full of generic titles and games that we have seen and played time and time again, playing something like this is immensely refreshing. It is a game that you must play with an open mind and to look at it from different perspectives. It is a game that you can enter in the same state of mind you would with most others, because it isn't like anything else. This has been by far the hardest video I've ever made, not just because of attempting to describe it, but because of how I can recommend it. The reason being is that I think that everyone that plays the game experiences it very differently and looks at it very differently. If I was to recommend the game to anyone, it'd be to those looking to experience something completely new and unique, and with an open mind. If you're looking for a standard jump scare horror game, you aren't going to find it. If you're looking for a game that is going to hold your hand, this isn't it. If you're looking for the standard psychological horror experience, well, Knock Knock isn't standard psychological horror. It is a game that I highly recommend, but I do so with a warning, and that is to take into consideration that you're entering something very strange, very weird, and you may or may not like it. If in doubt about whether or not you will like Knock Knock, wait for it to go on sale. With Icepick Lodge being an active developer, you will often find it on sale on Steam or GOG.com. One thing is for certain, this is not going to be the last time I delve into the twisted minds of Icepick Lodge. In fact, I feel I will be entering another of their dark worlds in the very near future. Thank you very much for watching. Join me in the next episode of Indiewatch, where we will take a look at an over-the-top mindless action game involving aliens.